Hi, I'm Heather from booktubes, and today is my March reading wrap-up. In the month of March, I read 24 books, I DNF'd 13 of them, and I'm going to talk about 11. You all are getting my DNF wrap-up for the first quarter due to public demand later this week, so you will get to see all the DNFs, all the reasons, all the patterns, all of the things. But I did kind of have a goal this year to up my DNF game again, because I felt like I was not DNFing as much as I should, and I was reading books that I probably should have DNF'd, but I didn't really mean to DNF as much as I have been. It's a bit unfortunate, but that's just the reality of what I've been picking up. So as always, we're going in chronological order. The first book that I read was definitely the highlight of my month. Definitely. And when I say I could talk about this book for 40 minutes straight, I am not exaggerating. And that is Mask of Mirrors, which is Rook and Rose #1 by M.A. Carrick. This is obviously a 5-star. This is a new all-time favorite read for me. I am currently 200 pages into the second book and equally obsessed. The third book is coming out later this year. I will be pre-ordering it. Y'all know, you know. I don't buy books like that. I don't buy traditionally published books like that because they're so expensive. You might say it's like a $10 ebook. Shh. I don't buy them. I'll be pre-ordering it. I will be reading it as soon as it comes out. I am completely and totally obsessed. So this is 1,000,000% because of Angela at Literature Science Alliance. Thank you so much, Angela, for raving about this book. This has been on my TBR for over a year because of her, and it just was fantastic. It was everything that I want in fantasy. It was so perfectly catered to my tastes and what I like, with court intrigue and political machinations and identities, and you know this and you know this, but what do you know? Are you lying to us? Do we know what you know, or do we just think that we know what you know? And you know, just layers on layers on layers on layers. I loved it so much. This is about a commoner girl, and we see her in the prologue, and then the first chapter starts with her as an adult. And she is basically running a con. She is posing as nobility and is trying to get entered into this house so that she can basically skim off the riches, live safely, all of that. So she's running a con. We know this. She is so smart. She's so good at what she does. There's a found family aspect that's really strong, and like, you're rooting for her, but also sometimes you're rooting for people that maybe she doesn't like, or maybe she doesn't like yet. So you have her, she's our main character for sure, and we have multiple POVs, and we do spend some time with other characters, but we have like 5 main focuses that we're following. We have Rien, who is our main character, who is our con artist posing as nobility. We have the family that she's trying to enter into. We have a police officer, basically, that is of the indigenous people and is considered a traitor because he's part of the police force for the nobility that are the colonizing oppressors. We have a merchant who has risen from being a street rat, basically, through the criminal underworld, and now controls a lot of the city through that. He's very wealthy, much wealthier than the nobility, but obviously is still under the nobility. And then we have the mysterious, legendary vigilante figure that is helping the oppressed indigenous people against the nobility, has been for centuries, the Rook. And you think you know who he is, maybe you don't. Maybe you think you know who he is, maybe you don't. Maybe you think you know who he is, maybe you don't. It's very interesting the way that they lay it all out, and whether you're right or not kind of remains to be seen. This obviously explores a lot of themes of colonization and indigenous people, and how you came from another country and you look down on all of the customs of the people that were here before you were, and you think that your way of doing every single thing is better. And of course that creates a lot of animosity, as well as the obvious like structural, systematic racism and oppression and all of that. So obviously that explores that. Something that I really like about this is that queerness is just a casual part of the world. It's completely accepted and is prevalent in the story, and I really, really love when we do that, especially when we're exploring kind of one form of oppression and prejudice and things like that. In this case, it would be racism towards these indigenous people and colonization. But then something else that is often oppressed in our society is just accepted as it should be. So everyone is working towards their own goal and towards their own gain. And sometimes those overlap and sometimes they go directly against each other. And you just never know who knows what, who is actually going to come out on top, who is going to be safe and who is not. I will say that this is not a fantasy that has a lot of trauma porn or anything like that. I would say the prologue is one of the heaviest parts, and it's not, horrible. So you're not going to be dealing with rape. You're not going to be dealing with horrific deaths on page. You're not going to be dealing with torture and just like tension building to where like you're so just stressed out reading it. That's not how it is, and I appreciate that so much. Well, at the same time, you don't know who is gonna do what or be okay or what's gonna happen or how we're gonna fix this or are we gonna be able to fix this and all of that. I love everything about this book. I think if you are also a fan of the Queen's Thief series by Megan Whalen Turner, I think that you would really love this. The plot and the characters and things like that aren't really one for one or anything. It's just the general vibe. If you like one, you would probably really like the other. Yeah, easily an all-time favorite. I did cry. And I love this book of convenient allies who may or may not become closer than that. You just don't know. I loved it. I loved everything about it. I loved it. And I am absolutely loving the second book just as much. It is like a 630 page book. They both are, and I am currently only 200 pages into it, so I have a lot of book to go. I'm only in part 2 and there's 5 parts, but everything is so clever. Everything is so clever. I could just go on and on and on with the world building because I love it. It's so well done. Okay. If you like fantasy, I think that you should read this book. It's as simple as that. If you don't like fantasy, I don't know that this would be the best beginner-friendly book. But if you do like fantasy at all, this is amazing in every way. And if you have read this and have any sort of similar character types and political machinations and level of stress factor, give me the recommendations, please and thank you. Then I have One Fell Swoop, which is Innkeeper Chronicles number 3 by Ilona Andrews. I am, of course, reading this for the Innkeeper Chronicles read-along. I gave it 5 stars. This is, in my opinion, the best book so far in the series, and just is all goodness. You have these innkeepers who are a magical resting place, basically a neutral point on Earth, but their main job is to keep their guests safe and to shield humanity from the fact that they're not the only sentient beings in the universe. This book in particular has a lot of themes of religion, of how religion can lead people to horrible things that maybe they believe in, but their actual leaders are just teaching them for their own gain and things like that. Sean and Dina, their relationship gets taken to the next level. You do finally get a steamy scene in this book. You really don't read Ilona Andrews for the steamy scenes. You might get one in a book. Like, it's not a lot, but it was nice to kind of have that happen for them. The Destroyer of Souls was a delight. If you read it, you know. And then we get to see Dina, who's our main character, our innkeeper. We get to see her sister and her niece. Her sister has been married to a vampire for many years, a space vampire, and so her daughter is half vampire. She has tiny little fangs, is adorable, is lethal, is a delight in every way. But we actually rescue her, and we get to see her maybe have her own relationship. Her book is the next book in the series. And the endings really sets you up for more. It really does. And it leaves you with some questions and our continued quest to find out what happened to Dina's parents. And I am just really looking forward to reading the next book because this is the final book that I have already read. I read it like 3 or 4 years ago. Didn't remember anything besides the characters themselves. I really didn't remember what happened in the book or what to expect from the plot or anything like that. But the next book is brand new to me and I'm really excited to continue the series, finally. Then I read Love Kills Twice, which is Fatal Fidelity #1 by Rien. I gave this book 4 stars. This is a non-binary assassin gets hired by a woman to kill her husband and then they fall in love. This had my classic, I don't like this, where you have a professional killer. You have someone who's very good at getting away with murder. You have someone who's very good at, casting suspicion away from themselves, yada, yada, yada. And then they fall in love. They get involved with someone that hired them or that they're connected with in some way via crime. And then it's like all of their safeguards and guidelines, and we don't do that because that's how you get caught, just get thrown out the window. And it's like, no, we won't get caught because we're in love. We don't need to follow all these rules. You can be here when I murder him. It's fine. It drives me nuts. It happens all the time in this type of setup. It drives me nuts. I did really like how the queerness was handled. I liked their relationship. I loved everything about that. Excellent. I was a little bit surprised when we went from insta-lust to I'm in love with you. It really felt like that was it. Like we just flipped to being in love and I was like, we're in love? Are we? I don't remember this happening. So, and I like Insta stuff. So it was very, very just flip a switch. A little bit kinky. I will say you have content warnings for domestic abuse, and her husband is a professor and he's demanding sex for grades from his students. Yeah, I liked it, but the big hangups for me were there are some plot issues where I was like, we just fell in love without falling in love on page. I like to see those conversations. I like to see it happening. I didn't feel like we really got that at all. And if you're good at your job, be good at your job. If you're good at killing people and getting away with it, be good at it, please. So then I read the next book in the trilogy, or it's actually a 4-book series, but only 3 books are out so far. And I gave that 4 stars. It's Love Bleeds Deep. This one explores more of our assassins' PTSD. They were in Iraq and active, I lost my words, but they were, they were in the actual war. And so there's a lot of trauma because of that, and also suicidal ideation because of that trauma. And we do see that pretty prevalently on the page in this book, so caution there. And then also they have a client and it is a ex-turned-stalker. And they are continuing to escalate and she is not safe. So again, if that's something you don't want to read on page, it's pretty heavy on page. Same issues with this one. Their relationship did continue to grow in this one, which I appreciated. However, she doesn't know what she's doing. She was just a artist / gallery owner who was married to an abusive piece of scum, right? She knows nothing. She knows nothing about carrying out a hit or any of the things. And again, it's like, you can't throw out all of the things that keep everyone safe just because you want to spend all your time with this person. Then I read Xeni, which is Loose Ends #2 by Rebekah Weatherspoon. This was a surprise 5 stars for me. Thank you to everyone who told me to include Rebekah Weatherspoon in the Giving Authors a Second Chance. I did read this well after that challenge, basically, so I didn't continue it right away, but I did. This is a marriage of convenience. Her aunt dies and she goes and inherits all the things, and there's family drama and all sorts of stuff, but part of it is she has to marry this specific guy that her aunt picked out for her. They are both bi, and he specifically has faced some biphobia in the past from a girlfriend, and so that is mentioned. Overall, they were just really, really sweet. They were so sweet to each other. They were funny. They were cute. It was steamy. they were just delightful characters. And I liked the way that a lot of their messy family stuff was handled. I didn't feel like we were spending so much time with that it was stressful, but at the same time we were dealing with that, and we were also dealing with our own issues and acknowledging that could put a strain on a relationship that's just beginning. And they were just so sweet. He was so sweet to her. Giant Scotsman that's a cinnamon roll, and I just loved it. It was a delight. I've known about this for literally years and never picked it up, so I'm glad that this did push me to pick it up. Then I read The Four Leaf, which is Holinights something or other by Jacquot. I gave this 4 stars. So this is a St. Patrick's Day. It's really barely on page. Friends to lovers, childhood friends to lovers. He's a hockey player. Their parents own the hotel together, and now she and her sister own it. He's there helping her. There's primal play. There was not nearly... The primal play did not live up to my expectations, and that could just be my own fault, but it was fine. It didn't do quite what I thought it would do. I thought the reasons for not already being together were really non-starter. I thought they were whatever. It was no reason to wait like 10, 15 years to be together for those reasons. It didn't make sense. It didn't make sense. I'm basically thinking that with Jacquot, I will continue to read her new releases, but probably won't dive into her backlist. By the way, all of these are rated high because I DNF'd everything else. Then I read Live, Laugh, Love. That's not right. There's supposed to be Lurk in there somewhere. Lurk, Laugh, Live, Laugh, Lurk, maybe? Love, Laugh, Lurk? Something like that. By Elsie Winters. It's in the Monsters in Love Anthology, is her short that's in it. 5 stars. I love Elsie Winters. This is the Mothman. We see him first in Green-Eyed Monster and continue to see. We also get to see the child of the couple from Green-Eyed Monster. Alistair is the Mothman. Lilith is an elf, and I laughed out loud several times. Elsie Winters is someone who actually makes me buy anthologies, and then I always read her short in it. That just doesn't happen. That does not happen for me. And I love them every single time. I love her characters. I love the way that they treat each other. She writes what I want to read, and she does it the way I want to read it. Like, we are just a perfect match. I don't know what to tell you. I love what she writes. Then I read The Woman with the Flowers by Jessica Gadziala. I gave this 4 stars. This is a mafia romance, and she is a florist, and she is completely unaware that the mafia is running guns through the florist shop that she works at. But her boss is kind of not good at what he does and doesn't bother to work. So she's running the florist shop, basically, but doesn't know about this. And then things happen. All sorts of things happen, and it brings a mafia man into town. And of course they fall in love with each other. And she's so sweet and vintage style, and just, I don't want to say like submissive, like the submissive woman, because that's not really what it is. But he's hard and dangerous and takes charge, and she's just sweet. And again, sometimes with feminism, I think people confuse it for there's only one good type. You need to, be a career woman, you need to take charge, you need to not take it. No. Feminism is you should get treated well regardless of your personality. You should get treated well regardless of your job. You should be paid the same. You should be safe. You should be taken care of. You should have options. Doesn't mean that you have to be one specific type. And I do like when we get some characters that are softer, quieter, maybe just want a simple life and want to be taken care of, and that's it. I really liked the women in this book because you have her, and then her cousin who she lives with is the complete opposite. She's very over the top. She's very, man-eater. She is a lawyer. She can kick your butt. She can shred you with words, all of that, and just absolutely does not care what other people think about her. So I love that we have both of those, and I really liked their interactions together. The mafia guy was kind of like, he was fine. He was good, but I really liked the woman and their relationship. Do have some content warnings in this book. Specifically, she grew up with hoarding. She has nightmares, basically, or visions of bugs all over. So, you know, be aware of that if that's something there's like one description of it on page, but if you just can't handle it, skip. Attempted SA, the hoarding and the bugs, I would caution against. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. Then I read Damaged, which is Necessary Evils 3.5 by Onley James. I gave this 5 stars. This is kind of a side note in the Necessary Evil series. This is new adult. We have like 20-year-olds. They were childhood friends. He's a psychopath. We do get to see some background on some other characters in the series that we haven't known that much about, and that was really fun. And the love interest, he was abused as a kid. He's still being abused by boyfriends now. And our psychopath is just like, absolutely not. Like, I'll murder them in their beds. So I had a really fun time. You can obviously see that I was reaching for authors that I expect to love because I was struggling. Then I read The Girl in the Woods, which is Misted Pines, #2 by Kristen Ashley. And I gave this 3 stars. I would view this book as a disappointment, honestly. I still really liked it. It was still a Kristen Ashley book. I still, read those many hundreds of pages in like a 24-hour period, basically. But we have an FBI agent, and then we have the owner of a strip/burlesque club, and she's a single mom, and he was married for years, is divorced, has 2 kids in college, and her daughter is like 6 or 7. Okay. Here's the thing. Everything about this plot is rape. It's rape, and you have a serial rapist. That's who he is investigating. You have other rapists. You have rapists getting raped. It's a lot. It's a lot. Pretty much every part of the plot involved that. And I just don't like that. I don't like it. It makes me uncomfy. I don't really have a good time with it. I just wish it had taken some other turns besides just that awfulness. And there was a lot of it. There was a lot of awfulness. So you have content warnings for that, obviously. Also, he grew up in a cult, and I would also say that you have a content warning for consensual non-consent gone bad, gone into rape. So one of those situations where you set it up online and then they don't respect any of the boundaries that you had set. So it's a lot of rape. It's a lot. So many different things. I will say that it's quite interesting that this book was entirely from his point of view, which I don't think that Kristen Ashley has ever done before. She has written several books where you do get both POVs, but this was all in his, and I liked that, but overall this was a little bit of a disappointment for me. There were still things that I liked. I still liked the book. But when I think of it, I think of all the things with the plot that I didn't like, and it leaves me feeling heavy rather than delighted. And lastly, I read Haven, which is Kindle #1 by Claire Kent. 5 stars. I love Claire Kent. I love her writing. It is addictive. It sucks me in from beginning to end. Even when I'm in the middle of a reading slump, it just does it for me. So this is set in her dystopian world, same world that Last Light was in, and we have a farm that was basically off-grid functioning before the apocalypse has happened, and with the meteor, and has continued to run and be a haven. They can't take in everybody, obviously, but it continues to be a haven for people. And her parents owned it. Now she and this guy that has been there since he was a foster kid, basically, they run it together. And for the last 1.5 years, they've been sleeping together. They're not really in a relationship, and they just have sex when she goes to his bed, but They've been doing that for 1.5 years. He worships the ground she walks on, and she has no idea. She doesn't know. She's like 21 and he's 24, and he just adores her and will do anything to keep her safe. He will put her above any of the other people. Everything is going to run to keep her safe, and if she insists on putting herself in danger, then he's going to be the one that personally protects her. And he just worships her, and she doesn't know it. He is very quiet, he is very gruff, but he adores her, and it's so sweet. You are going to have content warnings for things that you could expect in dystopian. So there's someone in their little community who is going to die because they can't get antibiotics, and you're going to have a scene where you know that a woman is being attacked and you can't save her. But overall, it's not going to be a particularly heavy book. There's no third act breakup. He like goes and it's like, you're not dumping me, and she's like, no, I'm not dumping you. They just, I loved them. They're so cute together. I'll be rereading this at some point. I love Claire Kent. I don't want to run out of her backlist, but at the same time, I'm going through it because I love her books. I love them. It makes me happy. So that's it. That's all of the things that I read in March. Tune in later this week to hear about all the things I've DNF'd so far this year. And that's all I've got for you. Let me know if you want to read or have read any of these, what your favorite book was in March. If you're gonna read anything, read Innkeeper Chronicles, Mask of Mirrors, and Haven. Okay, read those. Read those. You and me. Read those. I would have liked to have had more authors of color this month. My reading was a struggle, as evidenced by the DNFs. It was a struggle, and sometimes you just have to let perfectionism go to the wayside. Know that your reading is not defined by one short period of time, and continue to try. So that's it. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.